What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Motivation Monday episode. I'm here with my former collegiate football teammate, Blake March. Now, I met Blake over at Aurora University in 2017. We were a year apart, so I was a sophomore by the time he came in his freshman year. And, one of the things, man, about Blake is we would compete. He made me a better ball player while I was at AU for sure. Going against him and the likes of, Cole, Frankie, Dautine, Dykus, Huddy, those guys made me better. So there's a lot more to Blake's story. I met him in college. I didn't know him in high school. So Blake, welcome on to the Motivation Monday, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on. Obviously, it's a long time coming. Just like Connor said, we met in college. Super competitive. Characteristics Connor has in himself, and God uses him in a special way to shine bright. And I think he's a fisherman of men. And I think you really will start to see that as these episodes continue to come out. And yeah, I'm super blessed to be on here with you. I'm super blessed to know you as a friend. Like I said, I really,
Yeah, bro.
you said it really good. You hit it on the nail. Just the competitive spirit we always had that drove us to win the championships, but the relationships were always the championships, for us. And, it's nice to see, as we all continue to grow, in our story with our family and faith, football is always kind of what brought us together. So appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, bro. Can we go back in time a little bit, man? Tell people a little bit about yourself, about your upbringing, maybe about your childhood. Hit whatever points you want to hit. Like I said, I'm about in this just podcast format, authenticity and truth. So talk about your upbringing a little bit. Maybe go back in time and work your way back up to Aurora.
Yeah, I'm from the North Central Indiana area, Marion, Wabash area. I have two half sisters, and then I have a stepbrother and a stepsister. Grew up in a small town in Indiana. Like I said, Wabash, very small town, but I grew up. Both my parents instilled very good work ethic in me. My parents were separated my whole life, so I was also one of the kids that I'll get into it a little bit deeper, but I grew up in a separated home, so for me that's a lot of my story. But I grew up with two great parents that I watched have a good co-parenting relationship from the standpoint of I was always taken care of, and I had a great childhood. I was super blessed, and I feel like now I look back on that even more, just a lot of the lessons that I learned from a lot of the sufferings in the time being, were lessons for me. They were challenges, and there were things that everybody goes through, but I had two great parents. My grandparents, they're awesome. So I grew up in a good family, grew up in a small town, and sports, hard work, and faith, family, and football were always my life. So, just growing up in a small town, I had good work ethic, and I always wanted something more. I always wanted, I didn't know what I wanted, until sports really came into my life. Jeez, oh Pete. Come here, Cupid.
Cupid.
Yeah.
This is Blake's dog, Cupid. She's adorable, and she's freakishly athletic. That's a tall table. We're leaving that in the podcast.
Yep.
She came to say
steal
hello.
The show. Come on.
She came to say hello.
But yeah, I just, growing up in a small town, really built a lot of grit, hard work, suffering, not a lot of opportunities, but also, I just didn't want to be a statistic, so I grew up around a lot of great people, grew up in a good family. I had no excuses. So for me, a lot of the things just were things you have to endure, life issues, family, things that, are not necessarily bad in the meantime, not necessarily what you want to go through as a child, but it's something that's supposed to make you better. And one thing I know, my parents always raised me with the characteristics to be better than what they were, even though they still gave me the best life I could ever ask for. So just a little bit about my upbringing. Yeah, I mean, faith, family, football, like I said, I grew up playing all three sports: football, basketball, baseball, but football was really like what I grew up loving. My grandpa was an athletic director, for 25 years. He was a teacher for 17. And then my dad coached football. He's on his 35th year coaching. So it's for me, I grew up, running around watching my dad and watching my grandpa, and I just, I watched them mend relationships, with young men as well. And it's just what fueled me to be great. And I loved all those other sports. But once I started excelling in football, it's just something I really love to do. And so for me, like, I look back on my upbringing, and it's like football really saved me, and football really guided my path to faith. And it's supposed to be, faith, family, football. And for me, growing up, it was football, family, faith.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and a lot of people they don't want to admit that, and that was where I learned a lot of the lessons that I sit here today and say that were hard for me, but I was able to learn them. So a little bit about my upbringing was just as we get into it, it was football, family, faith, not faith, family, football.
You had the
And
order mixed up.
yeah,
Which I had, my order was football, 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 family. Like I was my mindset was so like twisted into the least important things I had at the most important. But it's funny how God uses certain things. I didn't say that God made me get injured, but I said God ordained some of my football injuries to happen to show me what was really important. I mean,
right,
dude, at AU, bro, like I played in 5 out of my last 21 games my junior and senior year. Like I played in 1 game my senior year. That's it, against
yeah,
Eureka. The rest of the time I was injured. But like to me, football was my God.
right,
This is who I am. This is my identity. And it's like when that's stripped away, I was so empty. Well, I mean, I turned to what stupid college kids typically turn to, in all the bad ways. Yeah, I don't have to
yeah,
really elaborate there. Pick your poison essentially with that. But
yeah,
my identity was so far into football, but it's like playing's gonna end. Even I mean, guys in the NFL, they stop playing eventually.
yeah,
And a lot of the people I talk to who've maybe played at a high level, collegiate, even professionally, it's like there's a void that's filled when their whole identity is I am a football player and that's it. So I think it's a good thing to bring up, like having the proper order, because faith is going to be important till the day we die.
yeah,
I mean, even there's coaches out there that retire when they're super old, but eventually, even we're going to stop coaching, and we'll
yeah,
get into your coaching
yeah,
career and how you transition from being a player to being a coach, because I definitely have some questions about that.
yeah.
But talk about kind of where you were in like some major impacts in your life that happened maybe in high school that kind of steered you to who you are today. Like how was your high school life? Childhood. How was high school?
It was for me, the rainy days were rainy and the sunny days were sunny. Like I said, I had a great upbringing, and I had, um, high school was great, but for me, I experienced a lot of loss. And I'll start with my grandparents. I was going to an AAU tournament. I was in 4th grade, so I was 10 years old. Um, and it was at Fort Wayne. If anybody knows anything about AAU basketball in Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Spies Fieldhouse, that's where everybody goes on Saturday mornings, to play your AAU games, and lots of good tournaments up there. And I knew my grandparents had a house fire, and this was the time that, my mom was still living. And, I I watched her walk into that tournament, and I was waiting to see what happened. And I asked her what happened after the games were over, and she told me both of them didn't make it. And for me, that was like the start of really, like, I kind of suppressed it, or
Yeah.
I didn't know what to feel because I didn't feel anything, and I was almost like, like I figured that I should have, but in the time I was just like I was okay, I was okay. And that was
Mm.
like my first test of like being okay. And then times where I wasn't, it was just like bridging that gap and like learning how to talk to people. And like that was like my first real intro into the losses and the challenges that I was going to have until, up until I was 16 years old, was a junior. I started dating someone in high school, and they passed away in a car accident. A couple nights before a football game my junior year, and that affected me internally so much, and like I really held a lot of that in. And as a young kid, when you start like dating somebody and you're so fresh into it, like I just met her parents, and like so for me, I was in such an awkward spot. I was in such an awkward spot. I really loved her, and like for me, like having to navigate like what I should do, how I should go about it, like what I should not do. Like that was really hard for me. And and for me, I didn't really have a lot of relationships. I've only been in two serious relationships.
And that was one of them.
Yeah, that
And
was
you're
one of
you're a
them.
junior, you said? A
Yeah,
junior in
I was
high
a junior in
school?
high school, just became a junior. Yeah. So it was football season, junior in high school. She was a senior. She was a year older than me.
Yeah.
Um,
Man.
so again, high school for me like was great when it comes to the sports and the success and the accolades, but you realize like all that stuff like doesn't really matter, when life strikes, because um, but again, the relationships, the people that I had around me, I had a youth pastor, um, Nick Driscoll, is his name. He played at Mount Union.
Okay, yep.
And
Powerhouse.
yeah, Powerhouse was, about he's about 8 to 10 years older than me, graduated in like 2009. So he's about 7 years older than me, but he was really a mentor for me, kind of introduced me into, and I grew up going to church, but he became our youth pastor, and I always watched him play football. He's the
Yep.
best football player that's ever gone through our high school, the best player that's ever gone through our area, and he was someone I always looked up to. Great work ethic. And his dad, Jay Driscoll, was another mentor of mine. Was a mentor of Luke's as well. Luke. He was a
Shout out
mentor
Luke,
for
baby.
us. It's the only dude I know that's pushing 80 that probably hadn't skipped a day of lifting and since 1977.
That's probably one of the reasons, man.
That yeah. So just like I've had a lot of good people in my life, and like I said, Nick, he was there for me, and Jay have always been there for me. But just as much as they trained me, and spent extra time working out with me, they also spent extra time, being good mentors to me. So in high school, having Nick and Jay, and like I said, Nick was a good athlete growing up, and we all watched him. But when it became like he came back home after graduating, had a cup of coffee with the Colts, and that wasn't his story, but came back home, became a fisher of men, and became a youth pastor, and really got me to go to youth group, and really introduced it in like my junior and senior year. It really was there for me. And again, I was like someone that was always like on that halfway fence. Like, you don't know if it's cool or not when you're
Yeah.
growing up. You don't know if it's like that's what you want to do, but like,
Do you remember like any when your girlfriend passed? Do you remember any advice that he gave you that was very beneficial? Because it's like when you're that age and somebody close to you dies, there's no instruction manual for how you're supposed to process or how you're even supposed to behave. It's how do you deal with a loss when you're 16, 17 years old? I mean, dealing with loss is hard at any age, but when
Yeah.
you're a young man, a kid, essentially, it's like, whoa, did he like say anything or tell you to do anything that really helped you?
I mean, it was just an accumulation of time being there for me, and just like, again, our conversations, and like, just I always like he had good work ethic. He was a football player in college, and like I always knew that's what I wanted to do. So just following his path, and like kind of just again, it was more like for me, I never got like specific advice that really changed me. It was just like people being there for me, and like people that were like taking the right paths in life, like were put into my life. And sometimes I didn't like take a moment to smell the roses in a sense, and like appreciate, even though they know that and I know that, but like those are the things in life you have to focus on. Those people that are special in your life, that like, and that's where faith is so important, because like Nick grew up around faith. Jay is a great human being. Jay's a servant of God. And so just like, and I touched too heavy on those, because for me in high school, those were two guys. Like Jay ended up moving across the street from me, and just like, I think it's the special relationships for me that got me through it. Now, like, you got to pat yourself on the back sometimes, and I think maybe some people do that too much by not appreciating, just like what I said, and maybe that's what I did a little bit too much. Maybe, I was focused on the awards, the accolades, not necessarily some of the great characteristics of human beings in life, and that's just part of being young. It's part of growing up. But that's why I'm so thankful, and that's where like getting into my coaching and things like that. I feel like that's where it's all intertwined. I grew up a coach's son, so it's in my blood, it's in my
Right.
DNA. But like it's a lot of the suffering and the great relationships I still have with those people, and the great relationships that I've had through the game of football, all through the game of football.
Oh yeah,
For
dude.
me,
My best friends, man, my brothers, you included, to this day, I met on the football field.
Yeah.
Like 90% of the
Yeah.
people I'm close with have some sort of ties into football.
Yeah.
I mean, in like my head pastor at my home church, Garrett Bova, I didn't meet him through football, but he just so happened to play at Ball State fullback.
Wow.
Like, so it's crazy because like he's our head pastor, and he's such a great leader, and he's got that fire and that discipline. I'm like, did you play sports? He's like, yeah, I played football. I was like,
Yeah.
Ball State fullback. I'm like, that makes sense. I think football has. I always tell like when football has a lot of direct carryover to life and how you are as a future husband, as a someone who's in the workforce or a business owner or a corporate job or whatever you do. Those same like mentalities of football, it's like, oh man, I don't want to get up and go to work today. Well, when we were in training camp at Aurora and our day was regimented from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., that helps carry you through a lot of the stuff that nowadays the average person who maybe doesn't have that athletic experience, I'll just sleep in today, I'll skip it. Where it's like, no, this is not who I am. So let's go forward to Aurora now. So how did you pick going to Aurora University? Like what were your top schools, and why did you pick Aurora ultimately, bro?
My top schools, so Indiana State, it's where I really was heavy on. Ended up getting, that's where I was predominantly getting recruited. And then it was really just, UIndy, Marion, trying a lot of smaller D3 schools, a lot of D2 schools, Ferris State, Grand Valley State. For me, I did like, this is where just being so young, man. Again, it's a blessing that I chose Aurora, but like, I just wanted to get away from home. Like I wanted to go play, but a lot of local schools recruited me, and I didn't want to be in the same vicinity. I wanted to leave home. I wanted to go, and that's what I did. Luke and I got recruited, and so I was really heavy on North Central too. So what's crazy about this whole story is I went to North Central in the morning, and then I went to Aurora at night. In my overnight visit, I had Hudson and Cole and Ethan Hastert. And so Colson, Hudson Stedman, Ethan Hastert, three of my best friends.
Yep.
That I went on spring breaks with, that I, practically lived with, like some of my best friends for life. I was just at Cole's wedding a couple months ago, watched him get married. Like it's super rewarding. And so like, to answer your question, I met those guys. I went on an overnight, and the next morning I committed to Aurora. Because I was like, I've gone on visits to other places, and it was just like the brotherhood and the relationships. I didn't really like, I wasn't really, I was heavy on trying. But I just, not to say anything bad about the other schools.
Yeah,
it was just like, one, I wanted to play early.
Yeah.
Two, I wanted location. I wanted to leave. So being close to Chicago was like cool for me. Illinois, yeah, let's do it. Like this place looks cool. I loved Coach Whalen. He's the one who recruited me.
Yep.
He had fiery energy, explosive energy.
Yep.
I'm like, man, I could go play here. Like, I love this. Like, I was ready to go ball out. And so, and then just meeting those guys. Again, I don't remember if I got to meet you that night. I think I did, but I got to meet Bodie, got to meet a couple other, bless his heart, love the dude. I got to meet a lot of what were going to be my best friends in life.
Right.
And teammates. I didn't know it yet, but yeah. So again, it was all God's plan, So it's crazy for me. I don't have this beautiful cookie cutter story. I went to Aurora and like all these things aligned in place. Yeah. Nah, man, I just wanted to leave. Yeah. I just wanted to get away from home, and it was like a great opportunity for me to go do it. Like I said, I loved Coach Whalen. He left the next week.
Yep.
Which
I had 1 year with Whalen. 1 year, my freshman year.
He left the next week, which is okay,
Yeah.
But man, it's just crazy. I spent the night with Cole and those guys, and 8 years later, I'm going to their wedding.
Right. That bond is still there.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'll brag about this, dude.
Okay.
Frankie and I landed Dykus and Nava on the same night.
Yeah.
We literally had Dykus and Nava together same night, and they both ended up going there. And two studs.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about like you, Dykus, Nava, like those are guys who came in and made immediate impacts, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, So it's like, no, I agree, man. I think for me, like, because I visited a few different schools, and like AU, same. Like I got a sense of I think I was with Will Craig and for my overnight, but I met Brendan Fulton. I met,
good dude.
Who else did I meet? I just remember meeting them, and I was like, man, I like this. And even like, I had 3 years with Coach Ponks and his coaching staff, and 1 year with Coach Beebe, and I got nothing but good things to say about both staffs.
Yeah.
People always want to say, well, this or that. To me, it's like I learned a lot of valuable lessons from both staffs, and I got nothing but good things to say about both staffs, So we'll get into that too, because that's a turbulent story about like the change in coaching staff. But yeah, dude, we can get to that now. Actually, talking about like,
let's get into it,
because it was my junior year and it was your sophomore going into your junior, my junior going into my senior year.
Crazy.
Yeah, our whole coaching staff essentially got fired. Coach Ponks and his staff. We're out of there, and for like a week we had no football coaches essentially. Yeah. And then I personally was where can I transfer before even giving like them an opportunity to hire somebody. And that's just being truthful. I was talking to some people from North Central.
Yeah.
I was talking to I was putting my name out there to everybody. I sent my tape to a bunch of schools, bro, before I even gave them a chance to hire Coach Beebe, man. And that story's funny because, and this is crazy, dude. So Coach Beebe gets hired, and this is so embarrassing. I'm gonna have Coach Beebe on this podcast too coming up, but he sat the seniors down, and this completely changed my mindset for the rest of my life. He had all the seniors sat us down, had us all stand up.
Oh yeah.
I'm so embarrassed by what I said. He's like, "What is your goal for this 2019 season?" And he asked every senior, and I said this, so embarrassing. "Coach, I just want us all to stay together as a team." And dude, I said, that's so soft. Looking back on that, I'm like, why didn't I say the right answer? But like, people were like, I want to win conference. People said, I want to win a playoff game. And Coach Beebe goes, I know what this team's problem is. You guys all limited yourself. Not a single one of you said, I want to win a national championship.
Yeah.
He's like, that's my goal from day one, year one. I don't have a 3-year plan. That's my goal. And I'm sitting there like, dang, I thought mine sounded good. I want us all to stick together. I don't want anybody transferring. I didn't know what to say, but it completely blew my mind when he came in. And it was funny how quick I was like, I was so mad at the AD, bro. I was so mad at the school because I liked the old coaching staff. I had a great relationship with them. I still like them to this day.
Yeah.
Coach Urison, Coach Ponks, Coach Studeman, like they're all doing great things in their respective like fields. Some of them are still in the coaching. Some of them got out of coaching. So I got nothing but good things to say about them. So like when they got fired, I took it personally. I'm like, I'm leaving. Yeah. And then, Coach Beebe's staff came in and they did such an excellent job too. And there's two men in my life that have helped me increase my faith. Garrett Bova, my head pastor, and Coach Beebe. And we're going to get into that too. Just how Coach Beebe changed my life. I know he changed your life, and like the full circle moment that we did a month ago. With your baptism, bro. That was one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of, bro.
I appreciate it.
That was such an honor and a blessing to be standing there while Coach Beebe, baptized you and you come out of that water and being in there with you, man. I look at those pictures, I'm like, dude, that was one of the coolest things. I had people reach out to me like, man, do you do baptisms? Like, no. Like, where did you get this done? I was like, we were in northern Wisconsin. We were filming a movie, on Coach Beebe's life, a biopic.
Yeah.
That's going to come out soon. But talk about your perspective about that, like, coaching change, because that was a big deal.
Man, it was a lot. I kind of felt the same way. I was ready to transfer. To be honest, I called my dad right after I walked out. And I said, I'm going to IU. So I'm going to Bloomington. I'm going to transfer with my buddies. They hired some dude named Don Beebe. And he goes, what'd you say? I said, they hired somebody named Don Beebe. He goes, Google him, and hung up on me. Click. And I'm like, okay. And it was Coach Beebe standing there with Brett Favre and his Super Bowl rings. I'm like, well, I'm an egghead. Maybe we'll try this out.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? Coach Beebe can probably contest to this. I was the guy that sent him an email and said, hey, Coach, I'm not going to play. And then you guys had a call-out meeting. I didn't go to it. And he goes, guys, at the end, Dykus and Sean came running home to me and told me this. He's like, yeah, Coach Beebe called you out. He's like, guys, and if you're going to quit or you don't want to play, just come to my office and talk like a man. You don't send me an email. And I knew at that moment he was just testing me. So I went into his office and we sat down and talked, and it was history.
Yeah.
Not only is he obviously his accolades playing the game of football are great. You can't ask, you can't dream to play for a coach like him. It's a blessing for us. Played in the National Football League for 10 years, played in 6 Super Bowls, played for some of the most historic coaches on the planet when it comes to coaching. Like, I love that because, like, I'm super thankful for, like, learning a lot of the things that he did when running a program, just the everydays, the everyday drills we did off the field, on the field, like, those are awesome. But he's a great father, great husband, great man, and he instilled those qualities into us, and nobody knows it, nobody will ever understand it, but like, it was full circle for me, like, to have you guys there at my baptism. I knew it was going to come sometime because we can get into it. Just like, Coach Beebe was in my life, I feel like, at a time where, I had the toughest challenge, and, he always challenged my faith. He always challenged my faith. Now, he didn't push it on me, or he never was negative to me, but he always told me the things I needed to hear. And I knew it was with love because I knew he cared about me. But, just for him, Super Bowl, Green Bay Packer, Buffalo Bill. No, I think great father, great husband, great man. And so that's just where a lot of people get it twisted.
Well, he's got a I always say that he's got a humility about him that's contagious.
Yeah.
A lot of people that play in the NFL, NBA they're egotistical. I did this, I did that, and he's so approachable and
so far from that.
Far from it.
And like, he's got a great relationship with my family, loves my grandpa, loves my grandma, and like, that means so much to me. And like, just he's not a guy that gives you lip service, And it's like, I say it all the time, that 2019 season was the best year of my life. And it should have been the worst. But for me, that season was awesome. That first year, the bond he built, it wasn't a 3-year plan, it was a 1-year plan. We came in and we believed we were the best in the country. And, we went out and swung with some of the best teams in the country. And like, that was like the goal for us, but we didn't realize how much we became like better men. We all became in better shape. Man, we were getting after it at 6 a.m. in the morning, waking up, and like, those things translate to being a father, husband, and like, good worker and good person in life. That you learn how to understand, like, you got to learn how to work with others to accomplish one common goal, but the work's the reward, right?
Yeah,
the work's the reward.
Well, I remember vividly the two quote unquote quotes that Coach Beebe came with, which was like the motto for the 2019 season. The first one being out of the Bible, which is funny, dude. He actually gave me my first Bible. I never like had one before, and he brought me to the first ever Bible study I was a part of. And the funny thing is, bro, this is how much he cared, because I was a team captain that year.
Yeah,
he was like, "Hey, I want you to go to this Bible study." I was gonna lie to him. Oh, I got class. Hey, bro, before I could lie to him, I was fully prepared to lie to him. Before I could lie to him, I already checked your schedule. I know you're free at this time. You're coming. I was like, who is this dude? How did he know? I felt like he knew I was going to lie to him. Coach, I'm busy. I can't go. No, dang well, I was going to be up to no good doing something stupid. 2 steps ahead of you. 2 steps. So I went. But I remember he came in with the Proverbs 27:2, which is,
My
Let
favorite
another man
verse.
praise you, not your own mouth, a stranger, not your own lips. And then the other quote he had, was, watch your thoughts, they become your beliefs. Watch your beliefs, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, it becomes your character. Watch your character, becomes your destiny. So thoughts into destiny. And I'm like, whoa. So I started, because I was like, I want to live by this stuff. It's like, dude, if everything really does start with a thought, and then that thought snowballs into action, action snowballs into character, who you are, and then it snowballs ultimately into your destiny. And now, I read the Bible. It's just the law of reaping. You reap what you sow. Whatever you plant into the ground, whatever you do, there's repercussions for that. There's repercussions for actions. And I was a kid, like I
Yeah.
knew that, but I would hide from stuff like that. So when he and then just the Proverbs 27:2, just about humility, it was something I was, you know, I needed to hear at that time.
Yeah.
And again, with him, it's much deeper than football because, dude, if you play in the NFL, you're in the upper echelon of people. Like even if you get
You're
a
in the
training camp
1%.
invite, like, and he played not 9-10 years, like, but he's so approachable and he again, NFL to him is like you said, it's secondary. I look at him as a great husband, as a great father, like as a great mentor, as a great leader of men, as a humble dude who, like, I feel like I'd just go into battle for any time. But
Yeah.
you mentioned something about that 2019 season. We're gonna get a little deep here. You said it was the best season, but it should have been the worst. There was a
Yeah.
circumstance that happened to you that year.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable talking about it,
Sure.
I'd love for you to talk about it, and but we're always going to end with the note of the redemption part of this.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, again, like I said, it was the best season of my life, but it should have been the toughest. Week 3 of our season, my mom passed away, and yeah, for me that was super tough. Obviously, super monumental moment in my life, and for me, I didn't know it was the turning point in my life. Um, and again, I plateaued just like anybody else in the peak of my life with finding Jesus and my faith and the redemption part you said. But for me, yeah, it was a struggle. The summer going into my junior year, so your senior year, 2019. I was working in the summer, and all of a sudden, I got a text or a call, and my mom just said she had some pain in her stomach, and she was going to the hospital. And just a quick backstory: she grew up with her right and left ventricle twisted. So she always had heart problems growing up, had open heart surgery when she was 3, had a pacemaker,
Wow.
took 26 pills a day, every health issue you could think of, you name it. So, and again, she worked 3 jobs to provide for me. So all the hard work and grit and, suffering, all the embracing the suck, all that stuff I learned from her. And in the moment, I didn't realize it. And obviously, I was having a great season. First 2 weeks, explosive start to the year, making a lot of plays, having fun, loving life. And, back to the summer, I'm working my junior year, going into my junior year, I worked for an auction company, real estate company. So just was helping out them. And during the days, I'd help them. And then I'd go to my high school and work out. And, she went to the hospital and at the end of June, and she never really got out. And so go to work every day. And again, I just turned 21. Like I was in a point in my life where like supposed to be at the peak, turning 21, like my mom didn't get to be there for me on my birthday, and like she's in the hospital. So like, I, I like had about 4 weeks of waking up, going to work, working out, and then driving down to Indianapolis from my house, which is about an hour and 15 minutes. I did that every day. And pretty much like she just had, she had a little bit of bleeding in her liver. But like for her, it was accumulation of like problems that were starting to boil up. Like when I was like at 13 or 14, she got pneumonia really bad and she was in the hospital. But like other than that, it was just like she'd have fluttering problems with her heart. So her heart would race, or like she would have issues. But now she's starting to retain water. like basically her body was starting to overcompensate and like really just shut down, and her kidneys are starting to fail, her liver was starting to fail, just everything. And so pretty much like she got into the hospital, and like I really didn't know what was going on, but like, along came August, or pretty much, yeah, and like it's hard to really pinpoint it, but like, yeah, like literally, I mean, my mom never got back with anybody. So my mom was single ever since, my dad and my mom separated when I was like 12 months, about to turn 1. And my mom was never with anybody else. She just always worked and just, focused 100% of her time on me as a true single mother. And with health issues, with everything, she always provided for me. But yeah, just, I didn't know really what was going on, but I knew, like, again, I look back on it, and I like I think the problems that I had with dealing with it was like I blame myself for not being more present in the moment, but like I didn't know like it was going to be my last moments. And so like
Mm.
for me, like I was going up there, but I thought it was just like another time for being in the hospital. And like got old enough to like understand like the gravity of the situation. Like, so like I ended up driving her car back home from the hospital, and like I stayed at home and took care of the house for a whole month by myself. And like I would just wake up and go to work, go work out, drive to the hospital, get home like 2 a.m., wake up and repeat. And so for me, like just going into season, I really didn't know what was going on, but she was supposed to be at our first game versus St. Norbert. So like we go through camp, and like I don't know if they like hid it from me, or I don't know if like, they just didn't really tell me how bad it was. But I remember getting to week 1, St. Norbert game, and she was supposed to be there. And after the game, I talked to my dad and my grandparents, and they were just like, yeah, something bad really happened, and she's like really taking a turn for the worst. And she just had a lot of bleeding that they couldn't get stopped in her liver. And by like week 2, Elmhurst, like I knew it was getting bad, but I didn't, again, like I went down to see her a couple times, and she just lost a lot of weight. Like I really recognize her.
Mm.
So for me, I was just like becoming numb. But again, like I was playing, and it sounds bad, but I played linebacker. So, linebackers, we like to hit people. I got to hit people. I got to take out my stress. I got to go run around and be explosive and let it all out and have fun. And, it was one of those things like you never thought it was going to end. Like the whole season, the stretch of everything. Like, and then for me, like, yeah, just week 3 or yeah, going into week 3. Well, excuse me. I think we played Hope or Elmhurst week 2 or week 3, but we got through week 3.
Week 2 was Elmhurst.
Week 2 was Elmhurst, and week 3 we went up to Hope, lost
Yep.
in a tough game. That was a heartbreaker. And yeah, I just got a call. My dad called Coach Beebe and was just like, hey, Blake needs to get home. And, by the time I got down there Thursday during that week, homecoming week, Elmhurst, she was already on a morphine drip. So I really didn't get to say goodbye. I really didn't get to talk to her. But yeah, she ended up passing away that night. And, for me, that's where like Coach Beebe and I's relationship really defined, because that was like the hardest moment for me. And like I could have had any coach that or any person that would have gave me a phone call and said, Blake, we need you to take some time off. We want you to step away. And that's what I didn't want to do. I'm like, I need to get back. And, like I suffered a lot of my family members, they weren't really like happy with that. And again, like I had to, like, my mother was I was a single child with a single mother. So like, this is where like I'll intertwine my dad and Coach Beebe. This is where I thank my dad the most, because my dad's an attorney, has been for about 30 years, had his own private practice. And like he was able to, set a will in place with my mother before she passed away. So like he helped me sell my house. I had to pack all my stuff up in the house that I grew up in. I didn't have a house anymore. We had to sell the house, obviously, because it went into my name. I couldn't pay the bills. I'm in college, or like I'm in the middle of my junior year.
Right.
I can't get a mortgage in my name. Like all these things I had to put in place, I would have never been able to do. So, God bless my dad for that. And like, it's those little things like that I'll continue to hit on that, or is why I just, I'll always have massive amounts of love and respect for my dad, no matter how much, the upbringing sometimes was a little tough with step siblings, step parents, this and that, just the typical. I won't get into it much, but just, the typical family things that you go through with suffering. And So just having Coach Beebe be able to say, Blake, well, if you want to come back and play, you can come back and play. And then, he asked me if I was going to come back and play. I said, I'll be back there, Friday for walkthrough. And he's like, all right, well, your teammates just wanted me to ask. And then like everybody went crazy. And it was like a monumental moment that I'll never forget. That's where like, man, I don't know why I came to Aurora, but all of our coaches got fired in the most difficult moment in my life. I have the best fisherman of men standing in front of me that played in 6 Super Bowls. Yeah, all that great stuff with football. We're winning. It's awesome. But a dude that genuinely cared for me and like gave me the ability to come back and play. And I got, 3.5 GPA that semester, like, and he came back and started to started not to push faith on me, but started to, challenge me day by day. And it wasn't easy. I had a lot of rainy days. And so for me, going into that 2019 season, it was amazing. And where we get into the downfall, I don't want to say downfall for me, but the toughest time for me, where it was Blake versus Blake, was COVID. I lost my senior year of football. I lost my best friend, Casey Dykes, bless his heart, had to go live on his life and, go to medical school. He's a stellar chiropractor now, so he had to go to med school and go to Palmer. Had to graduate early. He and I both got voted senior captains. Just got beat by St. John's by 4 points in 2019. We were going to go up there and can him and go win the Natty. And like, having my mom pass away to like 6 months later, having my senior year of football canceled, like it was a lot for me.
Right. That's crazy.
So like then it was just the being cooped up in a house surrounded by bad things in terms of we're in college. Put 2 and 2 together, I had a lot of buddies and friends that probably didn't understand why I didn't want to participate in a lot of things. And I struggled with like learning how to talk to somebody and learning how to like, the pads came off. I didn't get to go play. I didn't get to go hit somebody. So I had to really, for me, that was like my learning lessons. Those were the hardest moments. And again, I got to give love to my best friend, Luke Perlick. He and I grew up together. He and I met in kindergarten. Our moms were best friends. I ended up going to college with him. And like, he was there for every moment I had. Took me to the hospital to see her. And like, man, it's guys like him that, you got to be really thankful for, because, I was just able to, be a part of his wedding, see him get married. Love Kelsey. She's awesome, his wife. And so, yeah, just intertwining back to football, the relationships have always been the championships for us. We didn't go win the national championship, but we accomplished things, as a team together. And like that togetherness of that football team, you guys pouring out your love, your moms, giving me love, Coach Beebe giving me the time that I needed, but also giving me everything that I needed to be pushed to become a good man, to get through it and be who I'm supposed to be, was what I'm thankful for. And obviously I kind of jumped ahead a little bit getting into kind of COVID. That was really where it was tough for me, because again, it was me and Sean Reyna. We were both 5th-year seniors. Paiseki got moved to the defensive side of the ball, but we didn't know he was going to be there yet. And it's like, man, we got a bunch of freshmen and sophomores. I lost, the best friend that I could ever ask for. Me and Dykes came in, both played the same position. Both were defensive guys. Had mentors, Cam and Cody, that were just like us. So it was cool. It was a fairy tale dream. But, good things sometimes, good things gotta come to those who, work for it, not wish for it. And, sometimes those who wait get it, And so for us, or for me, really, it was really tough to be a leader in that moment, because I was, fighting a lot of demons. I was, and it was Blake versus Blake. And, I probably ruined a lot of, well, I wouldn't say, and this is where I have great friends, great people around me. I could have ruined a lot of relationships. I probably I did make a lot of mistakes in those times. And
what was one of the mistakes or maybe ongoing things that you felt was like looking back on it, they're like, man, why did I do that? But it was kind of like a learning moment now because, man, the point of this is like I don't want to air your dirty laundry out there, but I want to be real. You know,
Yeah.
it's like that's not who you are anymore. Just because what you did in the past doesn't mean. But there might be somebody who listens to this that might be into some like similar stuff that's like there's no way out. This is who I am.
Let me tell you something. I got really good with walking into the mirror every day and feeling sorry for myself. I got really good at it. I mean, really good at it. And it changed the Blake that I was. And I mean that. I started feeling sorry for myself. I knew that I had all the right answers, all the right people in front of me. I just got super good with feeling sorry for myself. It's the hardest thing to admit for me. So I never thought I'd be that person. And like you said, you recover from it. But for me, I got to the point where I was like, all right, now that time's over. You know what you need to do. I didn't want to do it. And so for me, learning how to not feel sorry for myself, I was able to understood that that's why I was a danger to myself. Whether it was the relationships, the things that I was doing, my priorities, or my character level. It wasn't reflecting who I was. Because when I leave this earth, I want the people that I know and the people that were around me to say, like Blake Martz, like he never asked me to do anything that he didn't do.
Right.
You know that, like 100%. Like Blake, he never asked me to do anything he didn't do. And I was doing that as a leader. And Coach Bell, bless his heart, love that man to death. Just as much as Coach Beebe, Coach Bell became our defensive coordinator once our new staff came in, and he just called me one day and was just like, Blake, you're not being yourself. Like, and for me, what clicked was like, he's like, I don't know if I need to have you step away from being a leader. And that put the fear of God in me, literally. Like, who are you becoming? What are you doing? Like, that hurt because I was conscious. I was cognitive of what he was saying. I knew it. Like, dang, man. I never thought he would say that. I felt like I let him down. I knew I let myself down. And I'm like, man, I let my teammates down. And really, like, from that moment in the spring, going into my senior year in 2021, fifth year senior, like I really started to try to like change who I was. I didn't become perfect overnight.
Right.
But that moment for me was when I knew I was at my lowest lows, and just to, as a mic dropper for like those, I guess, not airing out my dirty laundry, like let it be known. Like I got super comfortable with like not becoming uncomfortable with the daily situations that you need to go through in life to become successful and to become calloused as a human being. And I got super good with feeling sorry for myself. And I looked myself in the mirror and I knew it. And it was the people that I had around me that continued to challenge me. And that's why I like football. It's so great. It's a great sport. And then I'm like, man, you don't snap out of it, but you start to realize it, or you don't, and that's where like continuing to push. And I feel like that's where like, we sound so Homer when we say this, but like football's just such a great gladiator sport.
Yep.
But it's a sport of men where you learn so many lessons. Like as a leader, and we're both humbly, but respectfully, I think our peers would say this, we were leaders and captains for a reason, because we loved our teammates, we loved our school, and like we always tried to be better as players and people. So like I just feel, for us, like holding ourselves to that high standard, and for me, like realizing like I'm not the person I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be a leader. I'm supposed to set the freaking standard. I'm supposed to lead from the front. I'm leading from the back, I'm leading from the middle, and I'm leading second in line. And I'm picking which one I want to be on each day of the week. That was my problem.
So, what would you say, hypothetically speaking? You're a coach now, and we're going to get into that too, the transition from player to coach.
Yeah.
But what would your advice be to that person who's looking at themselves in the mirror and who's thinking to themselves, man, they fall kind of in that victim mindset. They look themselves in the mirror, man, woe is me. You know, no one understands what I'm going through. Nobody's going through this stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody sees me. What would your advice to that person be? Like, how do you get out of that? How do you get out of that mindset? You said it was a gradual.
Yeah.
Like, what would a first step look like, and then just a continuous process to get yourself out of there that helped you?
I would say number one would be wake up and remember and learn how to smell the roses. And I don't mean take things for granted. I don't mean be over exaggerated with that process. I mean, take a minute to wake up and appreciate what you've accomplished to the point that you're at in life. Whether that's remembering your why every day and facilitating that into your daily life, however it's incorporated, however it's good for you. And two, being thankful and living in the moment. Like, so many people are like, just like you said, there's nobody going through what I'm going through. Like, my life's so hard. Like, this sucks. Like, it's such a bad day. Well, it's going to get worse, right? There's things in life that are going to be worse than what you're going through in the current moment. And you don't realize it yet. Why? Because you only propel as a human being. You have kids. You become older. You become, a leader of this. There's more things in life that are going to happen that, combine all those things. But I think learn how to smell the roses every day. Be appreciative of what you have, not what you don't in the moment. And two, like I said, the work is the reward. Learning how to appreciate how you're in the moment of where you're at. But like, I wake up and like, I appreciate how I got here, the success, the football, but I love going to work every day, and I love being able to still do it, because you could wake up tomorrow and your mom could be gone. Your girlfriend could be gone. Your grandparents could be gone. For me, loss has taught me so much with, you got to live each day like it's your last. Not because you're scared, but because you're so in the moment that you should be prioritizing your life, that it's God's plan, by God's will. This is what really said it for me. Like, I just had the like, I just woke up one day and, current to date. And like I said, I'm not trying to skip ahead, but this is how, for me, smelling the roses, learning how to appreciate what I do have, not what I don't, and not putting myself in others' shoes and feeling sorry for myself while thinking, hey, my life is so bad. Somebody else is worse. Somebody else is worse. And so appreciating that, learning how to, live in the moment because of the things that, you lost, for me was super big. But I realized, like, every day that God continues to wake you up, He still has a plan for you. And if you don't think that, like, come and talk to us.
Right.
We'll tell you, we'll show you, and I'll be the first one. I know it. I know it. I feel it. Yeah. Like, I'm just telling you. And my grandpa has been a big indicator in my life with my faith. He's my best friend, and he's awesome. God bless his heart. He's getting up there in age, but that dude, I feel like he'll live till he's 1,000,000. And, he's just that guy. He's really good relationship with Coach Beebe. And, those are two men that have been very influential when it comes to my faith. And so, getting through those moments, smelling the roses, learning to be appreciative. And that's the hardest thing. But I'll tell you a quick story. Okay. I once heard a story about a gentleman where I get to the work is the reward. Okay. And I'm going to paraphrase. This isn't word for word, but I heard this from a very wise coach, Coach Craig Bazia. He's the coach at Crown Point now, where I coach at now. Coach Bazia is awesome. Cancer survivor. He's a dog. He's a freaking outstanding father, great man, great coach, and like, he loves it. he's just like Coach Beebe, and we can get into him in a little bit. But he wants, my first really like in tune meeting where I heard him tell a story that I won't forget was about a gentleman. He was either at a show, a county fair. It doesn't matter where he was at, but there was a dog show. You ever seen those shows?
Yeah.
Or those competitions where the guys or gals have the dogs and they have them do all the fancy tricks. And he was just looking, and he's like, man, I see this like old truck down at the end, and there's this guy, and there's these dogs getting out of the car, and none of the dogs are getting any treats, right? But you see all these other dogs, and they're all getting treats and stuff. They're all getting treats, and it just threw him off. It's like, why? How are those dogs getting in line and getting out all their cages, and they don't have any treats? So it makes the guy want to go to the show. He's like, I'm going to watch this old dude with these dogs. Like, that's crazy. These dogs are just like robotic. They're doing everything he's telling them to do, and he's not giving them one treat. So the show goes on, and, all these animals are doing all these crazy tricks and, going through the hoops and going through, all the obstacle courses, jumping over things. And, they're all getting treats at the end. And this guy comes up, pulls out all these chickens, all these different animals, and these dogs just go in lines and herd them. Okay? And they get first place. Doesn't give them one treat. This guy's just like blown away. Like, how? He follows them out. He's like, sir, can I just ask you? Why didn't you give your dogs any treats? Why don't you give your dogs any treats? He turns around. He goes, because the work's the reward. They love it.
Wow. Woo.
And I'm like, wow. You don't need to give the dog the treat. They love doing it. They love it. And so for me, I loved becoming a better person when I started to see it translate into my life. And that was so hard for me because I had so many reasons to continue to like look in the mirror and feel sorry for myself, this and that, and just like everybody else.
Yeah.
But it was always the people that I had around me. It was always the relationships that were the championships for me. Learning how to embrace the suck and like smelling the roses, all the punchlines. All that stuff can be lip service to people, but for me, it's come through hard work, and I stopped wishing for it and started working for it.
The work is the reward. I like that, dude. I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna steal that story. That's a really good story, and it's like that's why I like football too, because it's like there's one championship game, but how many practices there? Football is one of the sports where you practice way more than you play. I mean, basketball, you got multiple games a week. Baseball, you have multiple games a week. Football, you got one.
You practice so much more than you play.
Yeah. And without that practice, there's no reward to begin with. Without that work, without that practice that we had, especially in 2019, dude, you hit the nail on the head. Bro, we were psychopaths in that weight room and on the field.
We loved it.
We loved hard. It was a team that everybody was hungry, and if you weren't hungry, you were booted off. You were gone. You weren't there the next season.
Yeah.
If you didn't get it, you weren't there.
And just back to what you said when Coach Beebe asked you seniors to stand up, I remember that like it was yesterday. He asked you guys to state your name.
Yep.
Obviously, your grade, you're going to be a senior, and what's your guys' goal? And you went down the line, and it was like dominoes. He's like, that ain't it.
Yeah.
But I remember he walked out, he's like, gentlemen, some of you are scared of competition. Some of you think I'm going to bring in transfers. Well, I'm going to. We are going to compete. I'm here to plant trees and pull weeds. And I'm just like, I use that to this day.
Yeah.
Plant trees, pull weeds.
Yeah, you're a coach now. Bring it.
Yeah.
You don't want the guy that's like,
no,
coach, that guy's coming. He's transferring over from this private school. Am I going to get my spot? Maybe.
No. Yeah, maybe.
We'll
you want to work for it?
We'll see.
So that's just, man.
That fired me up because I had long hair. I looked like a hippie. I looked crazy, bro. I had freaking that long hair, as we all did.
I feel like we were all just on the fence of.
Yeah, but when he said that, bro, I was locked in. There was a spark in my eye. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be one of those trees. I ain't going to be a weed.
Yeah. And to tell you what, the craziest thing is he brought in, Cam and Jacoby, great players. He brought in some, but who were the core players? The guys that were there. We didn't change the team. We changed the culture.
Right. Bingo.
We didn't change the team. We changed the culture.
That's why I say coaching, like, you can have a talented team that could take you far, But if your culture's not right, you're gonna hit a roadblock here and
Yeah.
there. I've seen so many like just talented teams that didn't make it to the level that they should have because the culture wasn't there. If you're not in unison, if he's pulling this way, he's pulling this way, there's no unity. The common goal is not the common goal. Like our common goal that year was to win the national championship. Did we? No. But we took the number 4 team in the country toe to toe, and we were 28-point underdogs on D3's website, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things that I'll ask you this question. You're a coach now at one of the powerhouse programs in Indiana, Crown Point. Day one, camp day one. What's the expectation? What's the standard that you set? Because it's funny, because I coached at Hinsdale South High School before I coached back at Aurora, but this is a program that struggles. And I came in there and like Coach Beebe's mindset. I was like, "What's your guys' goal this year?" And a lot of these college kids don't want to rush for 1,000 yards. I was like, how come not a single one of you said I want a state championship?
Yeah.
Well, Coach, we went 4-5 the last season. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. If your goal's not a state championship victory, you're not in the right place. And I would say that in some of the other, like, culturally speaking, like, it's tough, but like, why? Like, your standard should be your standard, period. And that's one of the main lessons that Coach Beebe taught me is like, my standard was so much lower than I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought my standard was high. No, sir. That thing was low. And when he said that, I evaluated everything in my life, bro. Till this day, I was like, am I really pushing for a standard of excellence, or am I just falling back into mediocre again?
Yeah. So
how is it as a coach? You retire from your illustrious football playing career, and now you're coaching at one of the powerhouses, Crown Point. How is that transition, and what do you players expect from Coach Martz?
Oh, well, I can answer this a million ways, but to start off, my players can expect somebody that cares about them as a person, somebody that's going to bring max intensity, and somebody that's the same every day. I challenge those guys in their life. I challenge them on the field, and I try to bring an energy and effort to what I do that establishes one. I'm always representing the program in a positive way, one. And two, like, sometimes those kids might go home and they might not love me now. They might hate me now, but they can love me later. And they know that. I set that real quick. And I think one thing that my players know about me is that I'm there for them as a mentor, and I love them, but I'm not there to be their friend. And I don't have to address that. That's not the elephant in the room. That's the number one thing in the room. I've done it at the highest level, other than playing in the National Football League. Got to coach for somebody that played in the National Football League, and that never, for me, was the goal. But for me, I come from, being 3 years old, and I got a picture, and then I'll show it to you after this. I was 3 years old with a headset, in the newspaper, running around, following my dad. I always wanted to coach. It's in my DNA. I always wanted to do it. So being around a great coaching staff, like Coach Bazia's, and not only has Coach Bazia been successful as a football player growing up here in the region, played for Griffith, also played at Lakeland. He played at Lakeland, was a 3-sport athlete, was captain on the baseball team, football team, all conference in 3 sports.
It's crazy.
Was one of the only NCAA athletes to play played in a football game the same night and went and scored in a basketball game the same night. So crazy good work ethic, just like Beebe, and just the same kind of guys as Coach Beebe. And I won't dig into it too much, but like I said, he's a cancer survivor. Every bit of his story is about hard work, grit, perseverance, and he cares about the kids. His wife Barb is awesome. Barb does so much for our program, and they're great people. I've gotten to go over to their house, spend lots of time with them off the field. And one thing I'll tell you about Crown Point, it's not about the wins and, where we're at as a program. Like, that freaking program has a lot of great administrators but great coaches and great guys. And they brought me in. They were so welcoming. They didn't have to welcome in a 26-year-old young dude. But, you know, like I went in there and sat down and talked with Coach Buzz, and, you know, just my upbringing with, you know, where my dad coached and where my grandpa was an AD at Eastbrook High School. You know, Coach Jeff Adamson, you know, he's one of the all-time winningest head coaches in Indiana. I was blessed to grow up as a little dude running around in his program. And I was just a little kid, but like I loved it. And I loved going up to the players and like talking to them, and they all treated me like I was their little brother. And, you know, so that's how Coach Buzz runs his program. So for me, I came in, thought it was going to be about the X's and O's, but it's really about the Jimmies and Joes. I leave that place every night with a sense of like my heart wears because there's some kid that I'm thinking about, or there's a relationship that I have with one of those kids, whether it's offense or defense. I love all of them. And I wish I can take some pain away or do some things for some of those kids that I went through, but that's where I'm so content with where I'm at in life now, that I get to impact them every day. So I don't stress on that, but just like, you know, the standard. I've never been a part of a program that, you know, facilitates like what we do at the college level with learning how to be a man. You know, we tuck in our shirts, we have a standard. They lift, they work out, they live life just like, you know, a disciplined football player. But Coach Buzz's involvement in the community, how we impact, you know, the community, and how our kids carry themselves, you know, is super, says a lot about who he is as a person, and it says a lot about, you know, what we do as a program at Crown Point. Like I said, I love the community. I love the players. I love the parents. I love everything about it. And I've just been super blessed to come in to a program where I could assist and, you know, helping these young men through situations, you know, add my expertise of football, because we're all great coaches and we all can come together and just put our knowledge together and be one of the best staffs, you know, in the state, or let alone the country, I think, you know, at the high school level. You know, we got a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. So I get to learn a lot from those guys. Coaching, but how to be a lot on being a father and being men. And so for me, the biggest and best transition from being a former student athlete and just hanging it up was, I thought the biggest thing that I would be putting into this program was my expertise in the game. And that just happens. But it was really the experiences and the relationships that I've gone through. So for me, I go home every day like holding myself to a higher standard, because I know I got kids looking up to me, and I know I have, you know, I have a reason to represent myself at the highest level. And those aren't things that like should have to make you do things in life, but those are like, you know, when you wake up and smell the roses, when you wake up and appreciate what you have, what you don't. It's like, man, I get to go out and coach. I get to go to work every day and do something I love for great owners. And I work in sales, work out of the city of Chicago. So, you know, get to work from home a lot, get to make my schedule around what I would like to do, you know, and I've been able to make a great living for myself. And, you know, it never was about making money. It was always about just like working hard and being successful, and like just more and more as I open my life up to Christ and, you know, surround my life around faith, you know, that becomes more prevalent in my life.
Bro, I want to talk about that. That's actually a perfect pivot point. So about almost a month ago.
Yeah.
And you could talk about, so I got a text from Coach Beebe when I was in Florida. He's like, hey, we're doing this movie, you know, a movie about my life. Chad, his son Chad is actually playing him.
Yeah.
It's like, would you like to be a part of this movie in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
It's like, heck yeah. That sounds freaking awesome. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm the fish toss guy. Probably be the fish toss guy in the end credits.
Yeah.
And draftee, you know.
Yeah.
But I was a beast at that fish toss game for that carnival scene.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I missed my true calling, fish toss guy.
Yeah.
But one of the coolest thing about that weekend, the movie was cool. Being a part of a movie, being an extra in a movie was cool. But bro, the coolest and one of the most humbled I've ever been is your baptism. Talk about that, bro. Like, where did that? Because I know you had a conversation with Coach Beebe about that, and I didn't expect it to be there. There was a lake.
Yeah.
And that was one of the coolest things I've ever got to do, man, is to see you outwardly declare your faith in Christ and dedicate your life towards Him. Tell me about that process. Where'd that start, and how did it come to fruition when we were in Wisconsin?
Well, like I said, it really started when my mom passed away, when Coach Beebe came into our lives, I didn't really know it yet. Again, but it came to fruition. Just uh, here of late, I've just been again, like I told you, just having these callings, and just like I know when I wake up that like every day God was continuing to show me signs. Like every day that I'm continuing to wake you up, I still have a plan for you. And for me, that's gradually happened over time through going through, another relationship, having the ups and downs in that, and then, becoming single again, finding myself again, and just, becoming a better person. And just like every day in my life, my stepping stone was becoming closer and closer to that. Like I said, my grandpa and I talk a lot. He's my best friend. It's always challenged my faith. And just like I said, I was always ready to do it, and I was always wanting to do it. But for me, I wanted to do it for the right reasons, and it really had nothing to do, which is crazy. I just had texted Coach Beebe, and I expected him to be like, I'll get with you in the summer. He's like, hey, Blake, why don't you do it when we're up north in Wisconsin? And I'm like, man, that would be awesome. I would love that. And I had just texted him that because it was almost like this was all God's plan for me to get back into football. I remember 2 years ago in 2024, I was living in an apartment in Maryville. It was about 2 years ago, a month before I bought this house. And again, like I said, I just got out of a serious relationship. I was in some of the lowest times again in my life. And, it was the first game I went back to see Aurora play in 2024. First game where North Central opened up at home. Kicked our butts again. But again, that was the first time I reunited with Coach Beebe. And it was on the way home. I was on the phone with my dad. And we were talking, and he knew a coach at Crown Point, and he coached with him in the All-Star game, and he knew that he was retiring. And I was like, you know what, man? I was like, I miss football. It's almost like God brought me back, and I was able to, and this is just how I know. This is just how I felt it. Like, I just reunited with Coach Beebe, and just like, it was almost just like being around him again, God just put me back in Aurora for one time, because I didn't want to go back to games. I don't know why. Just after I graduated, I didn't want to be around football. I wanted to be done with it. And again, I knew I always wanted to be a coach, but I just was like scared that it was gonna ruin the love for me, or like I knew I needed to go make money, like all these reasons.
Yeah.
Like I ended up just going back to that game, and on the way home, my dad and I were talking, and I ended up saying like, yeah, like just send Coach Buzz a text and just see if there's an opening. That Sunday, I went and talked to Coach Buzz, and that next week, I became a coach on their staff. I had no idea going to that game that I was going to become a coach.
Domino effect.
I was just going back to watch a game.
Yeah.
And I didn't know their success. No idea about Crown Point. It was just close to where I lived, and I knew I couldn't afford to live in that town. Because I was living like my first house, I knew I needed to buy a house in Hobart. I was like, I don't have $500,000 to buy that first house, So it was like I was close to that town, and like I wanted to be a part of it. And like Crown Point's a little nice town, and like I said, it was almost like God just put it back in front of me, and I got to see all the fans that were there at our home game versus Aurora. And I wasn't playing, but it was 3 years after I was gone. And there was thousands of people there, like police was escorting people in and out. And I was like, man, this is a part of what I built. But it wasn't me. And it was almost like I just reunited with the staff, and God just pulled me back in with football.
Yeah.
And a week later, I became a coach. And for me, that started my journey of just learning how to become a better person, and just like holding myself to a higher standard. And I just was always, I felt like so scared of taking that last step, needing to learn those last lessons. And for me, I just knew I was on the tightrope, or I was on the fence with just fully wanting to give my life to Christ. There'd be times, I'd sit down and read my Bible, and I'm like, man, why am I not doing this every day? Why am I not, God's continuing to put things in my life that, are a blessing. I'm really in a position where I did a lot of things in my life that I probably should have taken a left at the stop sign, or I probably should have got, in trouble. I should have suffered from what I did. I impacted others maybe negatively. And, it's all part of my story. And like you've heard the saying, And it's not lip service. It's like God gives his strongest, challenges, or gives his toughest challenges and his hardest tests to his strongest soldiers. I truly believe that. And like for me, I was like thinking about like things in life at a time that were like, it's my story. But instead, like I learned and started really processing life like it's my story, but it's his glory, right?
That's good.
And I didn't do that. And I know that. And so like for me, that was the last lesson I needed to learn. One, I was feeling sorry for myself. And two, I just was at the point where I was great in life, but like, like was I taking those last final steps to become right with the Lord? And like, I was ready to give my life to Christ, and it was almost just like things in my life were happening one by one, day by day. And like after a year into coaching, like, I have my own house now. I have a great job. Like just things in my life have started to align with the work that I put in. And like it wasn't easy. A lot of days I deleted my social media, went off the radar for 2 years, took a job I didn't really like, started selling solar, started becoming successful, became a sales manager, got a opportunity to work for a great electrical contracting company out of the city of Chicago, got a promotion there, became a senior sales rep, lead project estimator. And like, man, I love what I do every day. I love it. And like, I love waking up, working hard, seeing the fruits of my labor, yeah, but seeing like how much I'm able to impact people that I work with, whether that's doing my job or being there as a person and, impacting. I have so many great coaches that I have relationships with now that, I'm hoping I'm able to impact them and, the players, for me, the craziest part's coming home and I could care less about the wins and losses. I care about those guys a lot. And because I see myself in a lot of those guys, and I wish I had but I did. I don't need to wish anymore. I know I had a Nick Driscoll. I know I had a guy like Nick for me there. A lot of people there's like, well, I wish I did. You have people in your life, you have moments in your life you have to take advantage of, or you have to be appreciative of, right? And there becomes a time where you become old enough where like you understand like, well, I didn't take advantage of that. Okay, like now I might even continue not to.
Right.
And then once you take advantage of it, you might just learn that helping yourself out might be the best thing for you and somebody else.
Yeah. No, dude, that makes a lot of sense. I love tying all that stuff in together, like faith, family, football, the three favorite F words pretty much, because my faith journey's very, 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 very much intertwined with my football journey. And of course my family's been a big part in that process too. So yeah, bro, being like doing that, like, and just Coach BB saying, why don't we just baptize you while we're at this movie set, was so cool, dude. That, like I said, one of the coolest, most humbling experiences I've been a part of. Those pictures, man, I cherish those pictures. They're sweet. It's actually going to be a thumbnail to this video. Is going to be one of those pictures for sure. But what's next for Blake Martz, man? What's, we'll start to get to the end of this, but what's on your horizon without giving away too much, because I don't want like people to say this is what I'm doing for certain, because a lot of this discussion was about the uncertainties of life and the fragility of life. You could be here today, gone tomorrow, type of thing. But we're speaking this more, in faith. What's next for Blake?
Just to continue being, the Blake that I'm supposed to be and being a better person every day. And for me, the hardest thing is, like you're great in your job, you're great in coaching. Like for me, it's like I just want to continue impacting as many people as possible, and that's through the word of mouth of Jesus and through the mouth of myself, through experiences in which I don't want others to have to suffer what I did to have to get to taste the rainbow. And so for me, whether or not I want to go coach Division I, whether or not I want to go coach in the NFL, whether or not I want to be the CEO of a company, like God, that's God's plan for me. So just continuing to, have a steadfast but yet, humble heart in Christ, and, continuing to to really put his name first. And for me, that's what, like I said, it just brings me a smile talking about it. Like,
Yeah.
because I know I'm doing what Blake's supposed to do. And for me, that was always the hardest part. You always want more. Like, you make good money, you want a better job. You have good success coaching. Well, I want to coach Division One. I want to coach in the NFL, so I'm on TV, so I'm making millions. Or do you want to coach at the NFL level so you can impact as many men as possible? Well, if your priorities aren't straight, the second one's not going to happen.
Yep.
So for me, that's the hardest part, having success and on the field of, business and football is just continuing to just it's God's plan for what I'm supposed to do. So just continuing to, knock out everything He lays in front of me, whether that's, being a high school coach and impacting, 15 to 18-year-old young men, then so be it. So be it. Whether that's being a CEO of a company so I can impact, great guys and gals to provide for their family, become better people, and still do, well, so be it. So for me, it's accepting my fate is in God's hands, and I know I'm living the life that I'm supposed to live, and we're not perfect, but we're all imperfect. My dog's over there going crazy on that. We're all imperfect people living in an imperfect place, right?
You're right.
So, just continuing to, open up God's playbook, read the scripture, and learn how to implement it into my life.
Yeah.
And, holding myself to a high standard. So,
Before I close this out, since this is, Motivation Monday, what's either a motivational quote, something that motivates you, whether it's a principle or a quote that someone listening to this could put into their lives?
humble yourself before the Lord, and He will lift you up.
Humble yourself before the Lord, and He will lift you up. That's a good one, bro. I can't imagine. Bro, appreciate you for being on this, bro.
Absolutely.
You like this video, feel free to comment, subscribe to the channel, like the video, send it to your friends. I'm going to answer all the comments I can. Have more powerhouses like Blake on here. He's definitely going to be on here again in the near future. But take what you heard from Blake today and implement it into your own lives. What I got out of this, the goal with these Motivation Mondays is already complete, because whether Blake knows it or not, this has impacted me. And the goal is always going to be, if this impacts one person in a positive direction, I've done my job. I'm not crazy on, looking for views, looking for all this. But these are genuine conversations I want to have with real people who have real struggles, who've gone through real things, real tragedies, real triumphs. And people who, like Blake, who just are authentic and don't hide the stuff, because we're all imperfect people. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.